Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. An Israeli rocket has destroyed a building in Gaza that houses the offices of several international media outlets. There are no immediate reports of casualties in the latest attack following the overnight killing of 10 Palestinians, including 8 children, in an airstrike on a refugee camp. This brings the death toll from the Israeli attacks to 140 since Monday. 13 other Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank. Myanmar's ruling military has accused its opponents, including civilian militias, of killing 63 people in various attacks since the coup in February. The military is struggling to impose order, and the resistance against the coup has now expanded from daily protests to attacks on security forces. Nearly 790 people have been killed in the crackdown on anti-coup protesters since the military seized power. The EU says Russia's decision to put the Czech Republic on a list of unfriendly countries undermines diplomatic relations. In a tweet, European Council's President Charles Michel accused Moscow of trying to divide the European Union. Meanwhile, Czech Foreign Ministry said the move will worsen Russia's ties with the EU. India has recorded over 326,000 new COVID-19 cases and nearly 3,900 deaths over the past 24 hours. In Pakistan, 83 people have lost their lives to the virus and over 1,500 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed over 3.3 million lives and infected more than 161.5 million people. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. An Israeli rocket has destroyed a building in Gaza that houses the offices of several international media outlets. There are no immediate reports of casualties in the latest attack, following the overnight killing of 10 Palestinians, including 8 children, in an airstrike on a refugee camp. This brings the death toll from the Israeli attacks to 140 since Monday. More than 950 have been wounded. 13 other Palestinians have also been killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank. Thousands of people are rallying in different parts of the world to commemorate Nakba Day. The day marks the forced expulsion of over 750,000 Palestinians during the creation of Israel in 1948. Myanmar's ruling military has accused its opponents, including civilian militias, of killing 63 people in various attacks since the coup in February. The military is struggling to impose order, and the resistance against the coup has now expanded from daily protests to attacks on security forces. Earlier, at least 2 people were killed as army clashed with civilian militias in a northwestern town for a second day. The latest violence comes after the ruling military declared a martial law to quell a local rebellion. Pro-democracy groups and ethnic armies have been rallying behind the national unity government that seeks domestic and international support. Nearly 790 people have been killed in the crackdown on anti-coup protesters since the military seized power on the 1st of February. The EU says Russia's decision to put the Czech Republic on a list of unfriendly countries undermines diplomatic relations. In a tweet, European Council's President Charles Michel termed Moscow's move as another escalatory step. Michel accused Moscow of trying to divide the European Union and said such efforts are in vain. He expressed full solidarity with the Czech Republic. Prague said limiting the number of local staff at the Czech diplomatic mission in Moscow will further escalate tensions. Czech Foreign Ministry said it will worsen Russia's ties with the EU and allies as well. Russia has listed the United States and the Czech Republic, among others, as unfriendly countries. It said the United States diplomatic missions could no longer employ local staff, while Czech missions could employ a maximum of 19. Washington says the upcoming meeting between United States and Russian top diplomats aims to take bilateral ties to a more stable path. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to meet his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, on the sidelines of the Arctic Council summit. Talking to reporters, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said both leaders will discuss the entire range of bilateral issues. He said Washington can work with Moscow in common areas of interest, including climate, Iran, and North Korea. But Price said the U.S. will act firmly to defend its interests against Russian aggression. Russia has frozen bank accounts of a U.S. broadcaster after fining it repeatedly for allegedly breaking its foreign agent legislation. Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty says Russian bailiffs carried out an inventory of its Moscow bureau. It said the bailiffs notified it of the beginning of the proceedings over the unpaid fines. The multimedia news outlet said that it has been fined $1 million this year as part of a Russian campaign to force it out. In a briefing, U.S. State Department spokesperson Jelena Porter said Washington is deeply troubled by Russia's move. She said Moscow attempts to suppress independent media and deny the Russian people access to objective news. The United Nations says it seeks to enhance cooperation with Russia in supporting global peace and stability. The UN statement comes after Secretary General Antonio Guterres concluded his three-day trip to Moscow. During his visit, Guterres met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Talking to reporters, UN Chief Spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric said the Secretary General expressed interest to deepen cooperation with Russia in three pillars of UN's work. These include peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights. Earlier, Russia reiterated its commitment to strengthening UN's leading role in the international affairs. India has recorded nearly 3,900 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 326,000 cases over the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed over 3.3 million lives and infected more than 161.5 million people. More in this report.
The coronavirus outbreak situation in India remains worrisome as vaccination drives in states stumble. Over the past week, the South Asian nation recorded 1.7 million new cases and more than 20,000 deaths. Supplies are short and the demand for medicine is overwhelming pharmacies and causing the prices of drugs and equipment to skyrocket. The price of oximeter has more than doubled to $20 from $8.
Demand for oxygen generation is very high recently. It's the first time for me to know that there are oxygen generators on the market. It's almost impossible to buy them in the formal market. Even if someone who urgently needs it got it after trying many ways, the price must be very high, maybe around hundreds of thousands of rupees.
In an attempt to contain the fast-spreading Indian strain that may delay the UK's full reopening, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the country will accelerate its vaccination program. Meanwhile, as the COVID-19 outbreak finally got under control in Slovakia, the government has ended its 8-month state of emergency. But over in the Americas, the situation remains grim. With the world's second highest death toll, Brazil reported more than 2,200 fatalities and over 85,000 cases in the past 24 hours. In Colombia, the death count passed the 80,000 mark with intensive care units almost full in the biggest cities.
We are still in a very difficult situation. The mathematics with the virus is brutal. We had gone up with the infections, we had a time when it started to go down, and then from April 27th, cases went up again. We are going to have at least 2 weeks of pressure on intensive care units.
The small island in the Indian Ocean, Seychelles, has vaccinated 60% of its population, but infections are still rising. The Health Ministry says of the current 2,700 cases, 33% have been fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, Taiwan has raised its alert level in the capital Taipei and the city around it, bringing curbs for a period of 2 weeks. For the first time, masks will have to be worn outdoors.
In Pakistan, 83 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the nationwide death toll has risen to 19,467. The ministry said just about 1,500 tested positive overnight. It has reported nearly 875,000 infections and 783,000 recoveries so far. There are nearly 72,000 active cases in the country. Over 4,300 of them are critical. Turkey says its armed forces have killed 3 more PKK militants during anti-terror operations in northern Iraq. In a tweet, Turkish Defense Ministry said Turkish Air Force killed the militants in a raid in the Metina region of Iraq. It said the offensive was part of the Simsk operation. Turkish forces have so far killed over 70 PKK militants in various operations in Iraq. Ankara holds the fighter group responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in a 30-year terror campaign. Coastal areas of India's southern Kerala state are facing ravaging pre-storm winds and heavy rains. The Met Department has issued a red alert in 5 districts of the state in the wake of cyclone Tuketa. Roofs of some houses collapsed in Prethlape region of Alappuzha, leaving scores homeless. Meanwhile, insistent rains and subsequent flooding in some villages prompted authorities to evacuate villagers. The storm is expected to intensify into a severe cyclone and will make landfall on the western coast on the 17th of May. At least 10 people have died and over 300 are injured after 2 tornadoes ripped through China's Hubei and Jiangsu provinces. The state media says 27 houses completely collapsed while 130 were damaged. The tornado blew down power lines, triggering an outage that affected over 26,000 households in Wuhan. Meanwhile, China's commercial hub of Shanghai was also hit by a powerful thunderstorm. Shanghai authorities have sounded an alert over the situation. Rescue and cleanup operations are underway in the afflicted areas. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. China says it has successfully landed the country's first unmanned spacecraft on the surface of Mars. The Chinese mission aims to study the red planet's topography, signs of ancient life, and the presence of water and ice. The state media says the Tianwen-1 spacecraft landed on a site in a vast plain known as Utopia Planitia. A rover aboarded the spacecraft will survey the land site before departing from the platform to conduct tests and inspections. China has become the second country after the U.S. to land a spacecraft on the red planet. Anam Kasir Javad has become the second female Muslim MP after she held the Westminster seat of Airdrie and Shotts for the Scottish National Party in Thursday's by-election. Kasir Javad is a 28-year-old modern studies teacher who was a Labour activist until the independence referendum in 2014. Her victory brings the number of SNP lawmakers in the Commons back to 45. The by-election was held after MP Neil Gary resigned in order to stand in the last week's Scottish Parliament election. The SNP has won a landslide victory in the election. An oil painting from Pablo Picasso has sold for over $100 at a Christie's auction in New York. Picasso's portrait of his French lover Marie Theresa vastly exceeded its pre-sale estimate of $55 million. The painting, captioned "Woman by the Window," was completed in 1932. The same painting was acquired only 8 years ago at a London sale for nearly $45 million. Christie's head of modern art department Keith Gill called the portrait an incredibly iconic image. The artwork was sold after 19 minutes of bidding. This marks the 5th work by Picasso to have sold for more than $100 million. Britain and Ireland have agreed to work together to maintain smooth post-Brexit trade between them. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his Irish counterpart, Michael Martin, discussed the matter during a meeting at Chequers. In a statement, Johnson's office said the two agreed on the importance of working together to uphold the Good Friday Agreement. Both sides regretted that the families of the Billy Murphy massacre victims had to wait so long for the truth. The office of Johnson reiterated London's commitment to finding a way forward in the Northern Ireland that delivers for victims. The statement read the two resolved to continue to work together in the fight against the coronavirus to enable a better recovery. The United States, Mexico, and Canada are set to hold their first formal talks on their continental trade deal next week. Trade ministers from the three countries will virtually discuss the deal, which took effect in July 2020. In a statement, U.S. Trade Representative's office says the talks will particularly focus on labor and environmental obligations. It said the ministers will receive updates about work underway to advance cooperation. This comes as the United States is reviewing tariffs which may be leading to inflation in the country. The move is expected to affect hundreds of billions of dollars in trade. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.